Welcome back, it's me, Lou, and I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review. And today we are looking at this Marvel Studios Spider-Man. So this belongs to the budget line of superhero action figures. It's not to be confused with the more expensive Marvel Legends action figures. You're looking at a budget action figure. So the pricing on this figure kind of intrigues me because previous budget figures from Hasbro, especially with their like superhero stuff like Avengers and Spider-Man, those were always kind of like sub $10. Like they'd always be like $9.99. But I bought this figure maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was a big deal because when I bought it, I ran into another collector and he was telling me that, he was excited for these figures just because the movie's not coming out until like December, and for whatever reason, they released these figures now. But I remember when I saw this figure on the shelves, I was kind of taken back because I think the price on this figure might have been marked up $1 than what the budget figures normally fall under. So I think this might have been like $10.99 versus the previous $9.99 that we got for like the previous budget figures from the other Spider-Man movies. But I think that depends on the stores also because I bought this at Target, and I want to say when I went to Walmart, I think Walmart actually had the figure for cheaper. So at the moment, I don't really know what the actual price on this figure is, but just know that it's a budget figure. It should run you anywhere between $10 to maybe $11. And is it a value? I'm not sure yet because part of me thinks that this figure might be actually smaller than the previous budget figures. So that could be maybe a cost cutting measure, but we'll only know once I take this out. But from right now, from where I'm standing, this figure looks a little bit smaller than what we've gotten before with the budget superhero figures. But we'll see that in a moment when I open this. For now, let's just examine the packaging. So, in terms of the package design, I like it a lot. It feels weird though because it feels a little bit. It's done really well. Graphically, there's a great image of Spider-Man. The color palette's really nice. It pops on the shelf. But there's something that feels slightly off about it. I can't put my finger on it. I find it odd that the Spider-Man logo, is very small. It's not loud. It doesn't really come at you like it should. And it seems like they're really trying to aim this more towards the kids. And it's kind of like the mystery web gear. What are you getting? There's a question mark. Well, it's not a mystery because it's right here. You know what I mean? It's not like it's in a baggie and you're buying it blind. The mystery web gear, it's clearly it's right here. I don't know why there's a question mark. There's no mystery about it. It's right here, and then when you look on the back, it's like there it is, the mystery. I don't know why they're calling it a mystery web gear because you clearly see what you're getting right here. So yeah, very questionable choices on the package design. They could, in my opinion, if I was the graphic designer behind this, I'd get rid of this mystery web gear because I don't think that's the selling point of this figure. The selling point is Spider-Man. Kids are going to be more concerned about getting the Spider-Man figure than wondering, oh my god, what's the mystery web gear? I don't know. Someone at Hasbro needs to talk to their marketing and just figure out, why this is. And then you get all these weird question marks on the side, like, "Ooh, what are you getting? What are you getting?" And it's like, it's right there. There's no mystery. It's weird. On the back, they're still trying to sell us on this mystery web gear stuff. The figure looks cool though. I'll give it that. And then it looks like if you get enough figures, you can make this crazy overkill webbing shooter deal. And then there's a brief bio here. Spider-Man gears up in his Iron Spider integration suit to fight evil and defeat villains everywhere. Okay, so this figure specifically, I believe it's his costume design for the upcoming film, Spider-Man No Way Home. But if you notice, for this line of toys, it's just strictly calling it Spider-Man. I don't think they're dedicating this line fully just to the one movie because in this wave, you'll also find Mysterio, which was from the last movie. And then I think there's another costume, the black and gold one, which is for the new movie. And there's a plain-looking Spider-Man costume, which I'm not sure if it's from this movie or if it's from, like, Civil War or whatever. But for now, we're going to take a look at the Iron Spider costume. And I'm excited. I'm excited, but also a little bit reserved. Because this figure, even though it's a budget figure, it doesn't wow me. I've bought budget figures in the past. I'm very fond of the budget figures. I love the fact that I could buy a $10 figure, and that nowadays they're giving us a lot of articulation, and the paint jobs are looking a lot nicer. But for this figure, there's a part of me that feels like maybe they're pulling back a little. And it doesn't help that in some cases they might be jacking up the price just by a teeny bit. But it's like I said, I need clarification on that. All I remember is that when I saw this on the shelves for the first time, it was marked up $1 more than the previous line. But at the same time, I saw this at Walmart and it was cheaper, so I don't really know what's going on. Let's take this guy out. Off comes the bubble. Okay, so I've previously reviewed the Mysterio figure from this wave, and that figure was great. Okay, all right. This is all right. First impressions of this figure, while still in the tray. He's short. It's a very, very short interpretation of Spider-Man. The proportions. It's almost like he's not even a teenager. It's almost like he's a child. He has such a large head, and it's a very short figure, but I don't want that to deter the figure, because I think the details from what I'm looking at right now look really nice. And here's his mystery web gear. Let's take those out. All right. So let's try to get this in focus. Okay, so my camera has an issue with the color red sometimes. This makes things look really saturated, so this might be hard to see. But I'll try to bring it into focus the best I could. It's a nice figure. So far I'm liking what I'm seeing in terms of the sculpting and the detail. I think the sculpting and the details is really nice. I've been spoiled though by some of these other budget figures, because some of these other budget figures, they have a lot of detail. They'll have like a very fine micro texture on the uniforms. This one looks nice, but then as I examine it closely, there's a couple of steps back in terms of it being a budget figure. But we'll get into that, in a little bit. For now, let's just take a look at the figure and, just chill out a little and just take a look at it. So, this is the Iron Spider costume, but I believe it's an updated version of it because the color scheme is slightly different. The sculpting on the head's nice. His webbing, it's cut in deep. But the one thing that bothers me, it's not going to show up on the camera, but in person, the plastic on the head's a different shade of red than it is on the body. The paint application's okay. The proportions of the figure is what bothers me the most. Like, I know that Tom Holland in the movie, he's supposed to represent a teenager, but this figure looks a lot smaller than it should. And I've mentioned this before. I recently reviewed a Marvel Legends Infinity Saga, the Fat Thor figure. And that figure, it's shorter than the previous Thor figure. So I'm not sure if Hasbro's resetting their scaling system for their action figures. Like, maybe they're trying to make the size of the figures a little bit more realistic and scale to one another. Or if they're actually taking, cost-cutting measures and, giving us smaller figures. Because I used to collect Star Wars 3 3/4 figures. And I remember there was a certain point where the figures started getting smaller. And it almost seemed like they were refreshing the scale. So, like, Luke and Leia would be proper scale to, like, Han and Chewbacca and Vader. But since they were giving us a more accurate scale, the figures all of a sudden became a little bit... Like, the short characters became shorter, and then the taller characters, they just felt like the right size. So, I'm kind of wondering if that's the case here. Like, this is supposed to represent a teenager, and, he's supposed to be slightly smaller. But the thing is, the budget figures, they're smaller to begin with. The Marvel Legends figures are generally 6 inches tall, whereas these budget figures are falling, within the range of 5 to 5.5 inches. But this guy, he really feels like he's falling on the really more short end of the stick. But I'm not disappointed though in terms of the sculpting. I think the sculpting's nice. In terms of articulation, his head goes left and right. His arms rotate and they go out. There's no bicep cut, but he does have a very tight elbow that doesn't want to bend. But it does rotate. I can't get it to bend. Just wait. I don't want to force it either because I don't want to accidentally snap the peg. So there we go. It's a little tight. Let's get the other one. Shoot, this is fighting me. There you go. Yeah, so word of caution, if your figure's like mine, the elbow is really, really tight the first time you want to bend it. So I'd recommend when you bend it to kind of like push and rotate. Just don't rotate. So when I say push, you want to make sure that you're pushing the elbow this way, and when you're bending it up. You just don't want to bend it up because you might wreck the peg. So now what disappoints me with this figure, with it being a budget figure, is that so for some of the budget figures that Hasbro's been producing, especially like with stuff as recent as like the Avengers Mech Strike figures, is that they'll provide us with more leg articulation. And so not only does that figures, well, they'll kick up, they can also kick outwards. This guy only kicks up, and that's disappointing. And what's even more disappointing is that he doesn't have any knee articulation. Whereas on some of the more recent budget lines, we're seeing knee articulation, also knee swivel. So this guy is kind of missing those. So for me, it feels like a step backwards. But at the same time, I can't remember if this was if this figure is actually a re-release of the Iron Spider-Man figure from, you know, the last movie, which it might be. If that's the case, it could be kind of forgiven, just because it's a reused of the same mold. But at the same time, if you're paying more for the figure, it's kind of like, you kind of want a little bit more. And for me, this mystery web gear doesn't really do it for me. It's cool if you're a kid. You know, you could deck Spider-Man out in this crazy body armor and go on adventures, and you could, like, I don't know, this thing looks nuts. I don't think the figure will even stand with all this extra weight. And I don't know if it's all one piece, it doesn't separate. So whoever designed this, I don't know if it's a joke or not. Like, I don't know, maybe the toy designer's like, you know what, I'm gonna come up with something really wacky and silly and see if they do it. And, you know, and they did. This is ridiculous. I don't know what this is. It's not enough that he's shooting one stream of webbing, but then there's like multiple layers. It's weird, it's wacky. I'm sure if you're a kid you might like it. I'm an adult, so I mean, it's questionable enough as it is for me to be sitting here with this action figure, but it's all right, I guess, for what it is. I am disappointed in the figure a little bit, because I want to say maybe this is a re-release of the previous Iron Spider figure from Spider-Man Far From Home. Okay, so if I had to rate this guy numerically, I hate to say it, a flat 6. The color scheme's nice, the paint application's nice, the proportions are kind of weird, the figure feels small, the articulation's a little bit more limited as opposed to what we've been getting with other budget figures, so that kind of hurts it. And if there is a price increase, which I'm not completely sure of, you know, that just kind of hurts the rating a little bit more. If you're a child, I think you're going to love this figure. If you're a serious collector, do you need it? No, unless you're like a completist. And since we're on the subject of Spider-Man, so here's a budget Spider-Man figure from a few years ago. This is the Avengers Infinity War Iron Spider. This figure is awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Even though the articulation is a little outdated, you know, it has just as much articulation as this. The detail on this figure is superb. There's an amazing micro texture along his uniform. You can kind of see it. The sculpting is super crisp, high definition. It's amazing. It's a great Iron Spider. He comes with, you know, the additional spider legs. I forgot what those are called. And it's just great. I love this figure so much. I love this figure so much that I went ahead and tried to find another one. And I did, but you know, unfortunately, the one I found was a bootleg. So this is a knockoff of this. This came in the Avengers Endgame packaging, and it almost looked legit until you took the figure out, and then all of a sudden you realize that this is a knockoff. It's made of a weird plastic. If you go through my videos, you can find a review on it. You'll find the video, and you'll catch me as I'm surprised to find out that this figure is a bootleg. And it hurts me so much because I want this figure loose. I love this figure so much, and I want a loose version of him. And I can't find one for a reasonable price. And when I found this guy, I thought I was getting a legit figure, but it's a knockoff. And the paint job is sloppy. The plastic is all bootleg and weird. But he does come with this cool Iron Spider, you know, with the extra legs and the backpack. And it's great. So for this, a budget figure of this guy, you know, you're looking at the same price, if not $1 cheaper than this one was. The figure is much taller. The detail's a lot crisper. It comes with cooler accessories, and it's an amazing figure. I love this figure so much. And here we have the actual Marvel Legends Iron Spider figure. It's neat. As you can tell, he's slightly smaller in terms of Marvel Legends because Peter Parker, Tom Holland, he's a much smaller sized, you know, human being than like Chris Evans or like Chris Hemsworth. So this fits in the Marvel Legends cinematic line very well. The detail is nice and crisp. So yeah, I mean, different versions of the Iron Spider, different price ranges. You know, we have 2 budget figures here. We have the premium figure here, and there's even I believe a much more expensive 2-pack that comes with, I think, an Iron Man and the Iron Spider, but that one comes with all the Waldos. It comes with the extra legs. But that 2-pack, I passed on it, and it's like super expensive now. I'm like kicking myself for not getting it. So yeah, I mean, if you're a Spider-Man fan, I mean, God, there's so many Spider-Man toys nowadays. It's like, it's great. You know, you're always gonna have, you know, options, and options are a good thing. Okay, I'm losing my voice here, so let's wrap this up. So once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Do you need this figure? It depends. You know, if you can find them for a reasonable price, I'd say just go for it. But at the same time, just, you know your expectations. You know, this isn't going to change your world. It's a budget toy, limited articulation, funky accessories, but it's nice. It's a decent basic figure. If you have a kid, you know, if you have a son or daughter that's really into Spider-Man, this is the way to go. It's a cheaper, much more affordable, you know, route than giving them, you know, like an expensive Marvel Legends. So, you know, keep the Marvel Legends for yourself as a parent. Give your kids the budget figure, you know. And if you could find the Avengers Infinity War budget Iron Spider figure or the Avengers Endgame budget Iron Spider figure, get it. But just make sure it's the legit deal. You know, don't be like me and order it and all of a sudden you get this weird bootleg figure. Love this figure. Love this figure. Love this entire line. I say this all the time. This entire line of budget Avengers figures from Infinity War and Endgame, they are amazing. They're priced so reasonably, like at $9, and then you got almost the entire cast of characters. Except I think the only character they were missing, I think, was like was Nebula, which like blew my mind because she's like one of the most important characters in like the last 2 movies, and they didn't make a budget figure of her. So go figure. So once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber or viewer, you know, thanks for all your support, comments. You know, you guys do. I enjoy reading the comments. And as I've mentioned before in some videos, if you leave a comment and if it doesn't show up, that's not on me. There's something weird with YouTube where they're like either screening comments or they might believe comments are spam, so they don't post it. So just, you know, word of caution. If you leave a comment but it doesn't show up, that's not because of me. That's just YouTube, you know, just, I don't know what they're doing. So until the next video, take care. You know, go out there, buy yourself lots of toys, have fun, and I'll talk to you later. Later.